podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everyone. On this Wednesday, October 2nd, Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. And, of course, Craig Button is our collaborator on Wednesdays of TSN and their hockey analyst and director of scouting. And this is something new, right? Craig and I are actually doing it together. Isn't that something? So Craig told me about a week ago that he would be in Montreal for a couple of days. And so I went over to pick him up at his hotel earlier this afternoon and drove him over to Souvlaki Authentique. And that's where we are. In all transparency, you're watching this just past 10 o'clock Eastern. And this was recorded a little bit earlier in the day. Actually, we started recording at around past 2 o'clock. But Souvlaki Authentique is family-operated Greek restaurants. They have 7 locations. This one here at 1050 Notre Dame in Lachine, Boisbriand, Pierrefonds, etc. They use fresh Quebec chicken, fresh Quebec pork. Both are hand-cut, marinated in-house. Their gyros hand-stacked in-house, never frozen. No MSG in any of the recipes. Greek potatoes, not your Yaya's Greek potatoes. These have a unique lemon sauce, and not Craig Button's Greek potatoes either that he made the other day. And the hospitality, as usual, is always fantastic when we visit Souvlaki Authentique. Terry, of course, and Costa are the owners of the entire franchise. Costa's here, and talking hockey with us. And of course, Sue is the owner of the Lachine location. She actually owns 2 of them. Pierrefonds, I believe, is the other one. Is it not? Pierrefonds is the other one. And the hospitality is always great with Sue. It was also a nice time, a good time to meet some people who came in and said, hey, we listened to the podcast and we wanted to meet you. We wanted to meet Craig, wanted to talk a little hockey. Michelle is here as we speak. Max is here. Max came over, big fan. I work not too far from where you live. Nice to meet you, Max. We had a great talk. And then he says, can you do me a favor? Maybe at one point, I probably said something I shouldn't have. And I look at him, I go, I blocked you, right? And he says, yeah. I said, give me your handle and I'll unblock you. I said, Max, don't worry about it. You have nothing to apologize. I'm pretty quick on the block button, okay? So that's the story. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I think it's funny though, like on the block, right? Like
yeah,
we on any given day, our sensitivities might be a little heightened. They might be a little bit. We might be a little bit more sensitive than at other times,
beings,
right? Yeah,
right? We have our good days, our bad days, our.
But we're sitting here with Max. We're looking at Max. Nice smile. I think that you were way too sensitive and blocked.
Yeah, you know what? As I usually am, by the way, I'd be willing to bet that I was. But, some days we're a little bit more tolerant. Some days we're a little bit less tolerant. And but that's that. Look, I mentioned this last night, but obviously yesterday over the wire, the Canadiens put out that 2 of their players were injured. And one was to have surgery, David Reinbacher, and he's going to be out 5 to 6 months. And the other one, Patrik Laine, and Kent Hughes came out and said, hey, listen, we feared the worst. Like we thought that he was going to have surgery and we thought his season was over. And you know what? That's what the first MRI that came out, that was the recommendation of our doctor, of the doctor to say, you know what? He needs to have surgery. But in this case, we went for a second opinion and we went for a third opinion. And Patrik Laine put a picture yesterday. He was getting off of a jet. So he went to have a third opinion in the States. And they said, you know what? We don't think you need surgery. We think if you rehabilitate it, you should be okay. Looking at anywhere between 2 and 3 months. So isn't that good news? Patrik Laine's girlfriend and fiance called it a miracle. And look, the city was waiting for a miracle. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. Like everyone knows what Laine's been through, but there's this hope that he can rediscover that passion for the game and have fun again and produce again the way he once did. And a lot of fans are looking forward to seeing Patrik Laine. And now, if all goes well, they should be able to see him in early 2025.
Well, and I think that when the trade was made for Patrik Laine, Patrik was excited, and certainly the fans' hopes rose, as they should. I mean, you're talking about somebody that provides an element that's really difficult to do and something that the Montreal Canadiens clearly would benefit from. Yeah. And when you heard Marty St. Louis during his press conference the other day talking about getting Patrik happy and excited to come to the rink, that was after the injury, and people weren't quite sure the extent of the diagnosis and how severe it was. I mean, to hear Marty talk about that, I don't know how many times, Tony, we've talked on this podcast about Marty St. Louis and Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, that, yeah, you're trying to add players and you're trying to build a team that can compete for the Stanley Cup and ultimately win a Stanley Cup, but they've created an environment here that is pretty special. And I don't think that that's something that should be underestimated, because, Patrik Laine said, I want to come to Montreal. Like he had control over where he could go. He said, I want to come here. And he was excited about being here. I think that you'll see somebody really, really work hard on his rehab. And hopefully that the term is on the shorter end of things, not on the longer term of things with respect to the recovery.
Martin Leclerc of Radio-Canada had a chance to talk with Kent Hughes last night, as did Marc-Antoine Godin of Radio-Canada as well. Can we hear from Martin Leclerc?
Durant cette rencontre-là, que le Canadien a rencontré, quand même, a fait appel à 3 opinions médicales pour essayer de voir clair avec ce qu'on allait devoir faire avec Patrik Laine. Puis le premier diagnostic faisait état, disait faut qu'on fasse une intervention chirurgicale, c'est ce qui serait préférable.
Yeah, and there you have it. Martin Leclerc earlier this morning on BPM Sports on the show Le Club du Matin, saying that, you know what, they checked with 3 people and 3 doctors, that is. And the first one said, I think you're going to need a surgery. Let's bring up Marc-Antoine Godin's article here. Some interesting stuff coming from Kent Hughes. On était pas mal sûr que son année était terminée. We were pretty certain that his season was over. C'est la première chose qui est sortie de la bouche de Kent Hughes quand il était question de Patrik Laine, son absence de 2 à 3 mois. It's the first thing that came out of Kent Hughes' mouth when we asked him to comment about Laine being out between 2 and 3 months. What we saw on the ice and the physical test that followed, we were expecting the worst, said Kent Hughes to Radio-Canada. He went on to mention, sometimes when you do the research and you do more tests, necessary tests, and you meet with specialists, you realize that there are other options. Laine and the Canadiens had 3 medical opinions before determining that the left winger did not need an operation to treat what is a left knee injury, of course, a knee sprain. And there you have it. So il n'y a jamais vraiment eu d'inquiétude que le ligament croisé antérieur soit touché. There was, never did they think that it was an ACL. But once again, le premier avis qu'avait obtenu le Canadien pointait quand même en direction d'une opération. The first opinion the Canadiens had pointed towards a surgery. So, look, isn't that good news? And anytime you tell a player, either you're going to have surgery or not, who wants to have surgery, right?
Well, not only that, and I think the mechanism now for players to be, I'll call it patient advocates, it's also, it gives them the opportunity to go find a second opinion. In this case, a third opinion. It's not just for the player to get that second, third opinion. It's also important for the team to say, and this isn't about one physician, one doctor being wrong and one being right. It's just, and Kent Hughes' commentary, he talks about knowing that there's different options, right? And then we found different options, and by going through the process, we now can avoid surgery. I think that that's a really important part for all players, and certainly for Patrik Laine, because, post-surgery rehab is different than just trying to rehab, the sprain in the knee at this point in time. And again, you hope that Patrick's recovery time is shorter rather than longer.
You're right about that. so much that happened in that hockey game last night, that preseason game between the Canadiens and the Senators. I think you could actually have 10 podcasts just with all the storylines. Think about it, right? Greg hits Doc. He blindsides him. Doc not very happy, goes down. A player who's had his share of injuries, goes to the locker room. Here we're thinking, here we go again. Goes for the concussion protocol, ends up coming back in the game. Struble decides to line him up and hit him pretty hard. Marty St. Louis seen talking to Mike Pizzetta at the bench. Arber Xhekaj goes out of his way to get all of Tim Stützle, whose stick comes up and hits him in the face and clips him, and he starts bleeding. Brady Tkachuk, who's already playing with a banged-up shoulder, you'd have to think, based on everything we've heard, without a second's hesitation, he jumps on top of Arber Xhekaj. Xhekaj ends up getting 2, 5, 10 in a game. The Senators go on the power play. They score 3 power play goals in 3 minutes and 34 seconds to erase what was a 2-0 Montreal Canadiens lead to go up by a score of 3-2. The rookie Yakimchuk scores on a laser of a shot to make it 4-2 for Ottawa. Oliver Kapanen, you and I have talked about him, of course, who's had a really good camp. He narrows that lead to 4-3. Marty St. Louis at the end of the game says, look, I found some positives at 5.5 at 5v5. We outshot them 26-6. They scored 4 power play goals. And he also went to the defense of Arber Xhekaj. But I want to talk to you about Xhekaj. I want to talk to you about the hits. How did you see the hit from Greg on Doc, which ultimately was determined by the referees to be just a 2-minute penalty?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. And I'm going to go back a little bit in time. You know, Mark Savard and David Booth both got hit back in, I believe it was the 2010 season, on blindside hits. And Colin Campbell, who is going into the Hockey Hall of Fame this November, he looked at that. He said there was no rules violated, but he said this doesn't feel like the right play in hockey. And Colin worked really hard to say we're going to have a new rule, the blindside hit, and it was going to be penalized. Brendan Shanahan came in and in his quest, and it was all done with good intention. He said, well, it doesn't have to just be a blindside hit. Why don't we just say any hit to the head that makes contact with the head? Then they reworked the rule a little bit. And now you had that. So now we ask ourselves this question. I think Colin was on the right track on the blindside hit.
Yeah.
Because when you watch Kirby Dach coming down the ice, right, it's easy for a player. And when I say easy, it's easy for a player to come on that blind side. In the NFL, you're not allowed blindside blocks anymore. You cannot do it. You cannot stand into a spot where the guy turns and you block him. It's a safety issue. I think the blindside path is a safety issue. I think we should reinstate rule. I believe it was Rule 48. That's a 2-minute penalty. You cannot attack a player with the intent of body checking him on the blind side. I'd like to see that come back. Obviously, if you make head contact, there's supplemental discipline and everything that we have in that regard. So with respect to the penalty on Ridley Gregg, I don't know what the penalty was. It felt to me like a penalty that the referee said, we're going to get the temperature of this game down a little bit. Like, we don't want it to rise. I hear this often. Oh, it was a high hit. There's nothing in the rule book that says you can't make a high hit. You can't do it with an elbow. You can't do it with a high stick. You can't make contact with the head. Nothing wrong with a high hit, but it's got to be within the parameters of body checking. So now, okay, so Kirby, I get it, a little bit sensitive, right? I've always said this about the players. If the players feel that they've been wrong, deal with it. Go and deal with it.
He did later on in the game.
And he did deal with it.
And to Greg's credit, he stepped up and said, you know what? I owe you one, so let's go.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough, right?
Yeah,
And the players, I always say this, they're on the 200 by 85. There's no hiding down there. They know who's real. They know what has to be done, and you trust them to do it. You might not always agree, but you got to trust that they're the ones in the heat of the battle, in the emotional parts of the game, that's going to happen. Now, later on in the game, we saw the hit by Arber Xhekaj. And it's amazing.
But if you don't mind, before we get to that point,
okay, yeah.
It's now 3 games in a row that an incident happens where there's a shot to a Canadiens player.
Okay. On
Thursday in Toronto, it was Lane Hudson getting cross-checked in the face twice by Max Domi. And yes, prior to that, there was, Pizzetta on Tavares. I get that. I'm not going to, leave that out. Max Domi goes out of his way to kind of jam Struble's face into the ice. On other teams, and we saw this with Ottawa last night, that when Xhekaj hit Stützle, Brady Tkachuk didn't even think twice. Not even a second's hesitation. Marty St. Louis has been talking about this for several days now, that pack mentality.
Yep.
He wants to see it. And to him, it sounds like that's more important than a Xhekaj and a Pizzetta taking care of business. And I have to agree with him because you don't know when Xhekaj is going to get on the ice. You don't know when Pizzetta is going to get on the ice. You don't know if Pizzetta is going to play. You don't know if Xhekaj is going to be hurt. And if you leave everything up to Xhekaj, then all of a sudden you're taking a defenseman out of the play. But if you all have that pack mentality, that's something that, A, really good teams that go really far usually have. And B, it's just probably just the best way to earn respect, is it not?
Well, it's an emotional game. And I just mentioned it earlier. On that 200 by 85, the players are the ones down on 200 by 85. Not me, not you, not the coaches, not the managers, not the fans. They're the ones that have to understand we need to address this. You trust the player. Like I said, some people might go, that shouldn't happen in the game. Trust the players. I know when I was in Dallas and I was in Calgary, we told the players we're not hiding behind the instigator rule. If you think there's a wrong, go fix it. We'll kill the penalty. No problem. I think that's what Marty's talking about.
Yeah.
Pack mentality. You got to trust the players that in the heat of the moment that you'll address that. You know, it's interesting, and I've known Max a long time. You know, Max knew what he was doing. He's trying to take advantage of a young Lane Hudson, a young Jayden Struble.
Of course.
You know what I'd tell those two kids?
He's a poop disturber.
You know what I would tell those two kids? Get your stick up and give them one right in the nose. That's what I would do. You want to let them know that you mean business. Now, that's a different part of the game, and people go, oh, Craig, you're like, really? Yeah. You know what? Make them come right through the stick, right? And again, like, so Max does that, and you see the situation. You saw what happened with Cedric Paré. We can get into that a little bit later. So to your point about Marty, the players feel they have to address it. As we get into the Xhekaj hit on Stützle, it's amazing on an initial reaction. Oh my God, like, let's throw him out of the league. Let's throw him. Let's not let him play hockey ever again. He's lost the right to play. And then and I don't think we've had clear evidence of it. I think the Department of Player Safety made a determination that doesn't deserve supplemental discipline. And I think after I've watched it a couple of times, I don't think it deserved even a 2-minute penalty. He came across, I thought he got him across the top of the chest.
Yeah.
Now he's a big guy, right?
Yeah.
And it was Stützle's stick that caused all the damage to Stützle.
You're right about that. I'll tell you what I didn't like.
Okay.
And once again, this is me speculating because there's no way I can put myself in Arber's head to know what he's thinking. I have a hard enough time putting myself in my own head and know what I'm thinking, right? You know, it looked like he's probably thinking an eye for an eye. They hit our player. I'm going to go out and hit their player. I don't know if he's thinking it or not. So you're wondering if that's what he's thinking. Is there intent to injure? Now, I saw the replay too, and the more I see it, that's not a suspension. There's no player discipline.
Not at all.
I don't have a problem with that. You know, and whether he's a repeat offender or not, whether he's had trouble over the last couple of days or not, that's not a suspension. There's no doubt in my mind. But before that happened, there's different ways the Canadians tried to be physical. Jayden Struble lined up Ridley Gregg and hit him good and hit him legally. No penalty, and I'm sure Marty St. Louis and everyone loved that. Arber Xhekaj delivers that hit on Stützle in what became an aggressive game, and he gets a 2, he gets a 5, he gets the 10, he gets the game misconduct. The Senators scored 3 goals on the power play in 3 minutes and 34 seconds, and ultimately the Canadians end up losing the game because of that. Xhekaj has taken some bad penalties before in the past. Marty St. Louis actually said he was okay with it at the end of the game, which was a little bit of a different twist coming from Marty, who hasn't always approved of Arber's indiscipline, and said he just thought it was a hockey play and he didn't think that it had anything to do with anything. He didn't think it was a retaliation. But I take a look at the way Struble managed that game last night, and I take a look at the way Xhekaj managed the game and the way Xhekaj's managed the last several games. It's become a numbers game on defense for the Montreal Canadiens. Mike Matheson, Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, by all accounts, has earned himself a spot. If so, David Savard. And then you have Justin Barron, who's a righty. And you got Struble and you got Xhekaj. It just seems to me that Struble's winning points with every day and every practice and every game, and Arber may be losing some.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think Jayden Struble showed in the last 40-plus games that he played last year for the Montreal Canadiens that he's real.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just about the preseason. I'm going to ask you this question.
I think he's really good.
Yeah, he is really good. The reason they were able to trade Jordan Harris, it's not because Jordan Harris isn't a good player. It's just they feel we get Laine, and you know what? We're going to have to give up a good player in Jordan Harris. You know, and that's just that's the price of doing business. But a lot of it is you got Jayden Struble, who came in and did played very well. Now, that being said, I'm going to ask you this question. You're playing the game, and you're a teammate of Arber Xhekaj.
Yeah.
You want him with you, or do you want him sitting up in the stands in his suit?
Yeah, I think if I'd have to look down the bench and he's there, I think I would feel a lot better about myself and my teammates, and I'd probably be bigger than I actually was. I had Pierre Maguire on the Sick podcast last night, and I said, Pierre, I get the feeling that if it's game one of the season and they're playing anyone but Toronto, based on the last week, Xhekaj probably doesn't dress. But because it's Toronto, I think he will. And Pierre says, you need that nuclear deterrent in the lineup and on your team. So with that logic, Xhekaj can do no wrong, and Xhekaj is...
I don't think he did anything wrong last night. I don't think he did anything wrong when he went after, in the last game when he went after Cedric Pare. I get it. I don't have to agree with it to get it. Like, I
understand.
I've said this to you before on this podcast. Arber Xhekaj is unique. There's not a lot of players like him in the NHL. He went down to the minors last year, and I thought he returned a better player. Montreal Canadiens had a plan for Arber. They instructed him. There was areas that they wanted to see him really get in order in his game. And I thought when he came back from the minors, you saw that. It's preseason.
Yeah.
You can pick your spots. You can pick your spots that deliver messages. There's nothing wrong with that. Brendan Shanahan, the former Department of Player Safety disciplinarian, he said, I'd like to get into a fight in preseason, early in the season, and then right before the playoffs, just to make sure the flies weren't going to come near me.
Wow.
Now, isn't that premeditated?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, Arber Xhekaj, I like, listen, you got Tim Stützle. What's wrong with delivering a message against Tim Stützle? He's in your division. You're trying to pass the Ottawa Senators.
Going to be quite the rivalry. They face each other again on Saturday night in Ottawa and in Montreal in the third game of the season.
But that's good. Like, you want rivalry. So I got no problem with Arber Xhekaj. And you want competition in your team. The Montreal Canadiens have competition. All you described there was competition. Justin Barron got sent down to the minors last year, and look at how he's come back. He's come back better. That this is all good for the Montreal Canadiens. These are not problems. And I want Arber Xhekaj on my team. I want Arber Xhekaj in uniform. He's unique. We had Mark Tenorti. Bob Gainey was coaching back in the early 90s. And Mark Tenorti was hard, aggressive. And
he was hard as nails.
And he was a little bit wild. Bob got him to settle down and said, you don't have to fight everybody that wants to fight you. You don't have to, you're going to be able to be in control of it. And I think that's the next step for Arber is to understand, wait a sec, I'm in control. I can figure out when I can do it. And I'm not so sure that he wasn't in full control in the last two games against Cedric Pare and the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
When a lot of people think he's out of control.
Yeah.
I think he's in control sending messages.
Canadians ended up drafting Mark's son, Jared Tenorti, of course. Fall is the perfect time to start a new job. Unlock your potential with Secure Payment Experts. Secure with a K, by the way, is the highest paying English-speaking call center in the Montreal area. That's right. Jobs English only, no French required, which we know is next impossible to find here in Montreal. They're always growing the team with two great locations, downtown Montreal and the West Island. Secure offers a fun and unique culture with great earning potential, plus no experience is necessary. There are two ways to apply. Either head over to Life@Secure on Instagram and tap apply now, or text apply now with your name and phone number to 514-909-8344. Come work at Secure. That's Secure with an K. Apply today, start tomorrow. Maybe we can get in yellow and play it Secure.
Well, let me tell you this, too. Yeah. The Canadians are secure with Xhekaj on the ice.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. So for you, Xhekaj is definitely in the top six. So how do you keep Jayden Struble out of the lineup then?
You don't have to.
That means you keep Justin Barron out of the lineup. What does that do for his development when you have a young guy who's a 7? He's not going to play much.
I talked about, number one, it's about competition. I'm not saying that Justin cannot get. That's just where my preferences are.
I hear you.
That's just where my
And
preferences
I'm going to
are.
tend to agree with you. I Justin has his qualities.
Yeah, no question.
But unfortunately, he doesn't play the man as well as maybe some of the others. He probably lacks the physicality or that toughness, which I think you have to add, considering that you have a guy like Hudson you want to insulate as well. And, Barron obviously has the luxury of being a right-handed defenseman, which, the Canadians all have a shortage of because they have David Savard, and then they got Reinbacher, who had surgery. They have Mayu, who is not ready yet.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But again, you're trying to find some stability. I mean, like last year, we saw Caden Gooley play on the right side. So, and is it ideal and perfect? And I think for Justin right now, he's at a stage in his career where he's not going to be a high-end offensive player. So what he's got to be is just a really good, efficient defender and player. I'm going to move the puck. I'm going to be really good defensively. I'm not going to get myself into any type of vulnerability. I'm going to make plays so we can get out of our zone. When a young player like Justin, a first-round draft pick, he had an offensive bent to his game. Now you get to the NHL, and now you start to, wait a second, am I going to be an offensive player? So I think this is, and I've seen that in the early part of this preseason from Justin. Like I've seen those steps that he took to be better in that area, because his calling card is not going to be offense. Now, maybe he finds a level of offense that surprises us all, but I don't think it's going to be offense. I like the fact that he's working to find that other area of his game where he can have staying power. Because now for Justin, it's about staying power. The elements you talk about are there. We know they're there.
Yeah.
And does it mean he's not going to play? No. But I was just kind of getting into and Lane Hudson. I mean, I think one of the things with Lane, and we've seen this with young players coming into the league at different points in time, there's lots of excitement at the beginning. Let's evaluate it. 5 games, 10 games, and let's see how he keeps hold, because it's just going to get increasingly harder. And not that Lane can't handle it. I haven't seen a level he can't handle really well. But, you have luxuries to do that. Like, what's Lane going to look like on the 3rd game in 4 nights? What's he going to look like? Is he going to be a little bit tired?
That's probably the game you should send him out.
Well, it gives you options now.
Yeah.
And so I think because you can look at it and say, okay, this player's going to go in here, a different type of game. Maybe you take Arber out a game and just say, okay, listen, we don't, this is
depending on who the opposition
is, exactly. Right? I get all that.
Yeah, so. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that even though I see Barron as the 7th to start the season in Montreal, ultimately I believe there's going to be a rotation. Lane Hudson will miss some games.
Yep.
Struble will miss some games. I can see Xhekaj missing some games, and I think there's going to be a rotation. With Pierre Maguire yesterday, we talked about the fact that maybe when Hudson and, a 3rd game in 4 nights at 4 and 6, his lack of size, they take a page out of Anaheim's book and Leo Carlson and load management, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's 2 parts for Lane. It's handling the pace and the higher skill level, which I don't have any problem that he'll be able to do. But the most important thing for Lane is handling the physical part of things. And he's not even, you think about how much he's progressed in the physical part of his maturity over the last couple of years. He's still got lots of more growth ahead of him. And so you don't want to put him in a spot, because also if you're a little bit physically tired, you become mentally tired. And then now you're a little bit greater risk too. And so, Montreal's done a really nice job of managing their young players, of understanding what the path sequence is, and then acting appropriately.
Marinaro, if you want to put $1 or $2 on Lane Hudson starting the season in Montreal, Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years of age and over, and play responsibly. All right, okay. So Oliver Kapanen. Last time, I said to you, if Oliver Kapanen, given his contract situation, that it's either the National Hockey League or with Timrå in Sweden, if Oliver Kapanen shows that he deserves in the preseason, and they deem that he can help the Montreal Canadiens, should they be looking at his development? Should they be looking at the fact that there's players here that are under contract that maybe there wasn't room initially, and now we know that there will be room because Laine is going to be out until at least, the end of the holidays. He scores another big goal yesterday. I mentioned this earlier this morning on BPM Sports Radio. I like Joshua Roy a lot. I know you do too. Kapanen's been better than Roy in preseason. I think even Barry Boulet's been better than Roy in preseason. I think even Heineman's been better than Roy in preseason. But Roy, to be honest with you, he's disappointed me a little bit. He's playing like a guy who thinks his spot is already given instead of going out there and trying to earn it. And maybe it is given already, right? Because he ended the season in Montreal. Much the same to Cayden Primeau. Like, I've been disappointed with Kid Primeau's camp. I think it's a bad camp at a bad time. These are young players who should be absolutely going for it and approach this camp as if it's the biggest camp of their life. So I've been a little bit disappointed in terms of Primeau. I've been a little bit disappointed in terms of Joshua Roy. I have not been disappointed with Oliver Kapanen. He can play. He can really play. And they put him on the wing now.
26-6 at 5v5 last night for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. St. Louis was happy about that. Yeah.
Well, and so Oliver, to me, I think that's one of the things for young players. How are you going to find your way to not only be a contributor in the game, but to earn the trust of your coach? And like, those are two things that have to happen. You have to be consistent in your game and what you're delivering. Productivity isn't just goals. It's about going out and making sure that you can push play, that you're not getting, that you can withstand what the opponents are doing against you, and you can find a way to solve those problems and get on the positive side with your group. I think Oliver's done that. There's no question in my mind he's earned the trust of his coach, and that's something that young players have to continuously do. But
we see the coach put him on the penalty kill there. That's a big sign of A, respect, and B, possibly, you know what, show me what you can do. This is the audition, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm dying. I've said this, I don't know how many times I've said this over the course of my life. I'm dying to meet the coach that won't play the players that help him win. I'm dying to, I've heard about, he won't play me. He doesn't want to win. Like, no, they play the players that will help them win. And I think that Oliver, through his ice time, through the way Marty has deployed him, I think that to your point, respect for what he does, and he's earning it, right? And now with Patrik out, like, you know, where could Oliver go and fit in? What does your third line look like now? You know, does Joshua Roy move up to that spot? You know, the challenges you have now, you know, you had Laine and Doc, and then you had Newhook there. Well, if Armia goes up there, you keep some size, you don't have as much offensive punch. If you put Roy up there, well, now you have two wingers and Newhook and Roy that might not be the biggest of guys, right? Like, where does the fit come in terms of where your players are at? But the Montreal Canadiens didn't have this 2 years ago. They didn't have this a year ago.
I hear you. But in the last 3 years, though, I'll tell you what they did have. They had one of the 5 worst power plays in the National Hockey League in the last 3 years. It's been really brutal. Alex Burrows has moved on to another area of the organization. Marty St. Louis says, "Give me the power play. I want to take care of it. That's my baby." And of course, he thought he was getting Patrik Laine up until, you know, a couple of days ago, and now Laine's out until the end of 2024. Lane Hudson possibly. Look, I know the preseason, winning a game, losing a game, no big deal. Scoring a goal on a power play, no big deal. But like, now it's 0 for 6,000 on the power play in the preseason. I mean, and it's funny the way sports is, right? Because they might start the regular season and they might start the first game and go 2 for 4 on the power play. In the second game, they might go for 2 for 5. And the third game, they might go 2 for 6, right? And all of a sudden, you got 6 power play goals in 3 games. Sports is funny that way, but I guess it's the $1 million or the $6 million question right now. But can you put your finger as to why this power play is just so lackluster?
I have 2 reasons that I see in the power play.
Oh yeah,
2 reasons.
I want to hear this.
Okay, so number 1 reason is they don't move with a lot of what I would call like that sharp quickness, either with the puck or with their movement, physical movement or puck movement.
Yep.
You can't be static on the power play. You have to have that pace of play high.
And I find this has been a common theme with the Canadiens, pardon me, because I'll take a power play like, for example, Tampa. Tampa's got some set plays that they do on the power play that goes for example, it goes from Hedman to Kucherov, and Kucherov's looking one way, but all of a sudden he finds a Braden Point in the slot and points one-timer, right? And they score goals that way. But also, if you take a look at that Tampa Bay power play, Kucherov's on the right side, all of a sudden can find themselves back at the point, can find themselves back in the left. They're all rotating and they're moving their feet. And when they're all moving around, it's more difficult to cover them. I think Tampa they do a great job.
Well, and I think you just made a great example of it. Like even when you think about how they pop out point, right? Like so the puck comes down to Kucherov and then point's already popped out. The puck's there and it's in the net.
Yeah,
that's what I mean about quickness.
Yeah,
quickness of puck movement, quickness of player movement.
Yes,
and if you move the puck quick, you turn around defenders, and if you move, it's harder to mark them.
Yeah.
Right? Montreal's too static. Until they get that area of their game up in terms of saying we're going to be way quicker, not just quicker. They need to be way quicker. They're too deliberate. Makes defenders like penalty killing teams just go, okay, yeah, who do we got to defend with? Second thing that I think is, and this is where Laine was going to come in and add a different element to it, is the bomb from 40, 45 feet.
Yeah.
They don't have a bomb from 40, 45 feet. Why? Like, I know how great the Edmonton Oilers power play is. They have the Bush bomb.
Yeah.
McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and Hyman, they're all good players. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the Bush bomb, like ice gets shrunk. And so I think the Laine loss from being able to score from a distance, because what happens when you can pull out a player and he can score from 40 or 45 feet, it also opens up space. And where does it open up space? It opens up space inside.
Yeah.
And that to me, Stamkos, you talk about the Tampa Bay, like, okay, but it opens up for Point, it opens up for Kucherov. So those are the two reasons that they're 0 for 6,000.
Max Pacioretty was a real good goal scorer for the Canadians. With all due respect to Max, I think it's safe to say and fair to say that he was a perimeter player. But nevertheless, he led the Montreal Canadiens in scoring many years. 30 goals, 33, 35, 37, 39, right? He had a lot of goals. He never hit 40. And, Cole Caulfield, right now at this stage of his career, is a perimeter player as well, but he's a smaller version of Max Pacioretty. And he put up 28 goals last year, and he'll probably put up 30, 35, 37, 39, maybe like Max. But what differentiates perimeter players, some from scoring 30, some from scoring 40, and some from scoring 50, is that big bomb. Like, Patrik Laine packs the heaviest shot on the Montreal. He's got a heavy shot, right? And they're going to be missing that. And, at one point, we talked and you said to me, the Canadians are not going to be a playoff team. And I think that was a couple of weeks ago. I don't think you've changed your opinion because you're in Montreal, have you? Right? Now, especially with lining up. But how much of so they want to be in the mix. Well, do you think they can be in the mix?
Okay.
Now, the mix being that with 3 weeks left in the season, they're within 4 points of a playoff spot. No,
it's not so much Costa, who, the proprietor of Souvlaki Authentique, right? And Authentique Souvlaki, excuse me.
No, the same.
Souvlaki, yeah. Anyway, he said, like, you got to be careful how you use words in Montreal. And what he said was, when you say you're in the mix, what does that mean to Montreal Canadiens fans? Oh, we could win the Stanley Cup. That's a good point, Costa made. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Like for another team in another market, saying you're in the mix means something different.
Yeah.
So what I said about the Montreal Canadiens, and we were talking about sound bites.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be sound bites. I think that the Montreal Canadiens are not a playoff team this year. Now, could they be? Maybe. Like, a lot of things would have to go wrong. Here's why. They've been in the bottom 25% in goals for, goals against, power play, and penalty killing. They've got to move up into that next percentile, that next 20. I think if they can get in closer to 20th in the league, that means you're going to be playing more important games with 3 weeks left.
Yes.
You're going to be playing against teams that are fighting for playoff spots. The intensity is going to be higher. You're going to feel that intensity. That's going to benefit you. But to improve goals for, goals against, power play, and penalty killing in such a significant way, that's a requirement. Like, you don't have to be top half of the league in all 4 of those categories, but you can't be in the bottom 25% in all 4 of them and expect to be. They got to make improvements in those areas to move up in the standings. And I think if they do that, then I think the Montreal Canadiens in 12 months' time, in 18 months' time, is when we can really look at this team and go, this is where they're on the right track and on the right path.
I'm going to talk to you about that penalty kill and that goals against in just a second. Not before I talk to you about Bittt. They launched a new ultra lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the cool fall days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and it's ultra refreshing. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. I spoke with one of their proprietors, Sean Gerard, yesterday, who was very much relieved to hear that Patrik Laine should be back anywhere within the next 2 or 3 months. And he said to me, Tony, if when Laine comes back, if the Canadians are in that mix come January 1st, well, then it's going to be some really exciting times in Montreal in the last 4.5 months of the season. I'll agree with that. You talked about the penalty kill and the goals against. You got to look at 2 guys, right? You got to look at more than that. You look at the penalty kill. Obviously, you got to look at everyone who's going to be on the ice, who's going to be part of the penalty kill. But if the Canadians are going to be in that mix, Samuel Montembeault, who was good last year, has to be great. And Cayden Primeau, who was good, has to be great. And I got to tell you that I don't know if Montembeault will be great this year, because great's a big word. And he's still developing, even though he's 26, 27. Cayden Primeau's had a bad camp. Jakub Dobeš has been so much better than him. And we heard at one point the Canadians were interested in Askarov, and obviously that didn't materialize. But I got to wonder where the Canadians are with Primeau. And I got to wonder how much they're asking themselves if Dobeš continues going the way he's going, if ultimately that makes Primeau expendable. Because,
well, a couple of things that I'll say about Cayden. This isn't Cayden's first rodeo.
No.
He knows what to expect. The Montreal Canadiens supported him and said, you're the guy, and then trading Jake Allen. So you come into the camp and you're not performing well, and that's a concern. There's no question about it. Second thing I'll say about it is we're back to competition. Imagine if you don't have Dobeš playing so well, right? At least Montreal now can look and go, hey, you know what? We got options here. And by having options, by having players that come in and push the competitive level higher, you know who else it serves notice to? To the Cayden Primeaus of the world. They start to look and go, whoa, maybe I got to get my game in better order. If you don't, what pushes them? And Cayden's a competitor. I'm not worried about Cayden being a competitor. Yeah. Sometimes you need a pinch between the shoulder blades to understand, whoa, this isn't, and good teams don't just hand out jobs. You have to earn them. Yeah. You have to earn them. Jared Bednar, I loved what he said about the Colorado Avalanche. He goes, oh, I hear all the time, we don't give young players a chance. We don't give players a chance. He goes, come and earn your chance. He goes, we'll give anybody a chance here that earns it. I don't think it's any different with Marty. In fact, wait a second. It's not any different. Yeah. If you want to be a championship caliber team, and Marty St. Louis and Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, they're trying to build a championship team.
I think the goals for, they're going to take care of that. I can't see them scoring as little as they did last year. I see them improving on that if Kirby Dach stays healthy and everyone stays healthy, especially in the top 6, of course. But mind you, Lainie's out until the end of the holidays, most likely. But I think for whatever reason, I think the power play is going to get better. I think it's going to be a question of time before Lane Hutson gets on that first wave of the power play. Maybe that's my heart talking and not my head, but I really, really like what he does. I think on the penalty kill and their defense, the goals they give up, they have a lot of young defensemen. Yes, they got veterans in Matheson and Savard, but the rest of the guys are like Goulie's young, Struble's young, Xhekaj's young, Barron's young, Hudson's young. In a pressure environment on a team that doesn't have a tremendous amount of depth, into year 3 of the rebuild or whatever it is, they might have a hard time holding up and keeping pucks out of the net. That's why it's going to be really tough on Primeau and Montembeault.
And I agree with you, Tony. And so when we consider where the Canadians are at and in the rebuild, and there's reason for excitement. There's reason when you see how Slafkovsky has taken such a step forward, and you see how well Caden Goulet has played, and you see how much more complete Cole Caulfield's game is, and then you have this, and you should have this excitement. It is exciting in Montreal. You trade for Laine, you get Kirby Dach back healthy, but there's still a reality there. And I think that for Montreal, it's not just on the blue liners too. It's about the forwards. not turning pucks over in the neutral zone, making sure you're not making hope plays in the offensive zone where you got to chase back to your net. And then being able to support that from a team point of view is also going to be important. And that's part of the progression and of where the team finds itself. And I think that those are elements that Marty's trying to instill on the team. But I think there's a lot more depth and a lot more quality player in the organization that can help them take steps forward in that right direction. I think they will take steps forward. I just don't think it'll help them get to the playoffs this season.
I'll wrap it up in a second here now with Doc and Souvlaki. And we're at Souvlaki Authentique 1050 Rue Notre Dame. And we want to thank Costa here for the hospitality, and his partner Terry, and Sue, who is runs and operates the location here in Lachine and in Pierrefonds as well. Not before I talk to you, of course, about Playground. Looking for the ultimate entertainment experience, Playground has it all. Gaming, poker, fine dining, live music, DJs, all with unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground, your top destination for fun. So I'll end it with this. Yesterday, you saw Kirby Dach, fight his own battles and say to Greg, "You owe me one, let's go." And Greg says, "Okay, you know what? I do owe you one, let's go." Game before that, you saw Souvlaki doing the same thing. He looked pretty good early on versus Rafai, but didn't look so good later on in the fight where, he left himself open and Rafai caught him with a right hook, put him down. Luckily, no damage there because he wasn't taking on Jack the Giant Killer, okay? But seeing some of your better players fight their own battles, but coming at the risk of getting knocked out because this isn't something that they do every day, I get the feeling you like it, but would you be for it?
Listen, I am not. I said this earlier in the show. I am not going to tell players what they should or shouldn't be doing. I remember Jerome McGinley broke his thumb fighting Billy Guerin one night in Calgary. And, Jerome is like, "Oh, geez, maybe I should." Jerome, it's in the heat of the moment. You got to do what you think is right. We'll get your thumb fixed. Don't worry about it. Like those are the types of things that the players, and it's a competition. It's hard. It's physical. And the opponents aren't giving you any room. You're trying to push them back in the heat of the moment. I would never tell a player go and fight. But when a player stands up and says, "I'm sticking up for myself," or I trust that. And I think that it's important. Back in the 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs, we played the Vancouver Canucks in the second round. And Shane Churla, who was a rugged customer, chief scout of the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Everybody dreams about winning the Stanley Cup.
Who was their goalie back then? Kirk McLean?
Yes. Okay. And anyway, they came into Dallas in the first game. So Shane, he could skate. He gave Bure a little bit of a rough going. Well, Shane was coming across to hit Bure, and Bure threw an elbow up on him and dropped Shane Churla.
Wow.
Dropped him.
Wow. Pavel Bure.
Dropped him.
Oh.
You know what Bob Gainey said? Got to admire a guy that's going to stand up for himself and not let players run at him. Bure didn't need help. They had his back. Don't get me wrong.
Gino Odjick did.
Yeah, but Gino Odjick didn't have to come and do anything after that. Bure took care of Shane Churla.
Yeah.
It was funny because in after that game, Brian Burke, who was the league's chief disciplinarian, talked about, there better not be any antics in game 2. Bob goes, "Antics?" He goes, "What are you worried about? Pavel Bure can take care of himself. Did you see that elbow he gave Churla?" Bob admired that. And I think what I'm saying here is you're going to do it in different ways. Sometimes you get knocked down. It's how quick you get back up and come back hard. Sometimes it's like Souvlaki says, "That's it. I'm going to drop them," right? You got to trust the players that in the heat of the battle, in the heat of the moment, there's got to be a certain amount of self-discipline of knowing what you're at, not being reckless. But you got to trust the players that they're going to do what they feel is best in that moment.
I like the fact that they've gone to Tremblant for a couple of days. It's something they used to do more often before in the past, I think. And that team bonding, of course, team building and all that stuff. Is there, if you're Marty St. Louis, you're the coach of that team, you're away for a couple of days. What is something that you want to see come together here over the next couple of days in terms of what you're trying to accomplish with the team and this team building? Or can you share with me a story of some teams that you've been involved with in a team building exercise where something really, really good came out of it?
Well, I think there's so many different team building exercises. being together before the season starts. You know, you start off with a big camp, right? Everybody's you have groups, everybody's going here. The older guys are, you know, they got their own world. They're trying to get ready. The younger guys are, where do I fit? Like Lane Hudson, it's all like a whirlwind for him right now. He's trying to figure it all out. And I think that just being together. Now you're together. Everybody's in the dressing room at the same time. Everybody's on the ice at the same time. Everybody's you go out to dinner. Like, you know, the leadership group is going to take a hold of that, you know, and I don't think there's any question that Marty St. Louis and the group are going to see the players together. And that's because that's what it's going to take. We talked about being together on the ice and everything. Yeah. There's so many different exercises. We used to go to Vail in Dallas, and when I was in Calgary, we went to Banff, and, you know, and some of the team building things are more about just encouraging one another, like, you know, whatever type of things you set up that might be outside of hockey, and just seeing how you get encouraged, how somebody says, hey, Tony, you can do that. Like, you know, climbing, doing a ropes course, or doing whatever they put into play. Right.
Yeah.
And just encouraging your teammate, hey, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what it is. It's 82 games. It's 82 games where you're in close proximity of one another. And you just talked about it. Got to be tight.
Too many games, by the way. I know you're probably not going to.
82. Games. I think there's too many preseason games.
Well, they talked about it at the Board of Governors meeting. One of the things they're talking about is a compromise, maybe reducing taking away 2 preseason games and adding 2 regular season games. That makes sense.
Well, here's
that.
Well, okay,
I just
four preseason games. Let's add 2 regular season games and call it a day.
Yeah, I know we'll disagree on that. I just think that, look, we both work in hockey. For a couple of different networks here. And the more hockey games there is, I mean, the more food we can put on the table. And, one quick look at me, and there's been a lot of food on the table, and it doesn't stay on the table for that long. But once again, I always come back to this. I think the players are the product.
They are.
And I think the human body can do so much. And you're seeing this now in soccer. Like, some of the teams are complaining, like the guys get like 3 weeks off sometimes throughout the whole season. They have 55 matches. They have 4 or 5 different competitions going on. I see a lot of 2 games. Look, the Canadiens are going to open up. They host Toronto on Wednesday. They're in Boston on Thursday. They host Ottawa on Saturday. It's not extensive travel, right? You're at home. You're going to Boston. You come back. You got Ottawa at home. It's 3 games in 4 nights. That happens often. 4 and 6s, 6 and 10s. And I think the product suffers. So if they can shave some off, but I know you like the season as is, and you probably even add a couple of games.
I would add a couple of regular season games, but the preseason's got to be reduced.
Yeah.
The players are their physical condition is too good. They're ready.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to deal with all the what I would call the build up to the regular season.
Yeah. And Craig's physical condition is very, very, very good as well. I have to tell you that, but
you're talking about food. So here's what we're going to do.
He didn't make that Souvlaki breathe very long. I got to tell you, you put that thing away like you were going to the electric chair in 10 minutes.
Hey, when you have good food, you go, right? Listen,
yeah,
there was other hands around the table. You want to make sure that nobody's reaching in to to grab some. So,
yeah.
Anyway, here's what we're going to do, though.
Those are in Yellow's hands. My hands are the ones that pay. His hands are the ones that eat.
Listen, I just watch the hands. I want to make sure. Nothing. Here's what we're going to do, though. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 7 Souvlaki Authentiques in the Montreal area. Right?
Yes, 7.
So I'm going to give $30 gift certificates to each of the 7 ones. And here's the trivia question. And you're going to manage it. So somebody gets 1 for each of the 30 for each of the one, a gift certificate. Go on and have whatever they want.
Okay.
And here's what somebody has to come up with.
Okay.
Okay. And you're going to have to manage it. You and I, Nell, are going to have to manage it.
Okay.
Who's Sammy's favorite team?
Who's Sammy's favorite hockey team?
Yep. That's the trivia question. They got to answer it. First one to answer it. First one that answers it gets a $30 gift certificate to one of the Souvlaki Authentic.
Oh, that's very, very nice. Yeah, that's cool stuff. There you have it. Craig Button, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't have to spend time with him to find out that he's a class act. I found that out a long time ago. I just ask anyone in the business, and they're going to tell you the same thing about Craig Button and about the Button family in general, because I told you that before, right? I heard a lot of great things about your father, and obviously your brother has been working with the Calgary Flames for quite some time, but the Buttons, I've been told by people in the know, are good people. And I had a chance to see that for myself. Thanks so much for dropping by, Souvlaki Authentique. I know that Costa appreciates it, and so does Terry, and obviously so does Sue here and so does everyone else. We have Max here who came in to see us. I had blocked him on Twitter. I unblocked him. I have Michelle over here. He's not on Twitter, but the good news is that, I won't have to block him, because if he was, I'd probably end up blocking him. So, all right. So nice to see Michelle and Max, and nice to see everyone. Thank you so much to everyone over at Souvlaki Authentique for the tremendous hospitality. We really, really love coming here. We really do. Thanks for watching, everyone. For Shane Gaumont at Master Control, thanks, everyone, for watching. It's been the Sick Podcast. Have a good night.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBeat.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.